have a PB today. Team just goes fishing correctly. We're over here at Tally Seafood. We got a whole crew here today, folks. Got a guest speaker. I don't know if he's here yet or not.
So we got it up to the side.
Okay. Tell us about yourself, Hank.
Love fishing, love the fishing. My son-in-law fish the trestles, the lake, and I also fish the Bumpy River, checking things out.
Gotcha. CJ, the store?
I am. I'm from La Place, Louisiana. I just retired. I was a policeman for 41 years. Hung it up to fish. And usually go down to Cocosry a lot, but right now somebody put a drain plug and there's no water down there. So for the past few months I've been fishing a lake, trying to get what I can, and it's always been a miss. I can't seem to do like these guys do on YouTube. Every cast with an artificial and they got fish in the box. I try everything I got in the box. I don't get anything but a soft drink out of my box. So I'm here to learn. That's why I came today.
Great. Good play. And how did you hear about it?
On Facebook.
On Facebook?
And your videos.
Okay, great. I can't read that. Okay,
Ponchatoula area. Just heard from y'all from YouTube and fished on and off. Pretty much just started.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's all new to us.
All new.
Yeah,
great. Okay. Is that prayer or prior? Okay, down here. Parker. Parker.
I fished Shell Beach for a while, and then I moved my boat over to Chef Harbor and been fishing like everybody else. This to go for the winter and the dam and all that. And
so that's kind of where I learned all of my fishing from, and old school fishing spots up until Hurricane Katrina and the construction of the wall and everything changed. I don't catch fish in Delacroix anymore like anybody else. Mardi Gras Pass kind of messed all of that up. So every now and again I'll make a trip down to Reggio or something along those lines when it's good and salty and catch them. But really, I'm in Bayou Bienvenue now. But I took a lot of my techniques from fishing the marsh in Reggio and Delacroix. You were talking about double rig beetles before. I fished double rigs, I fished single rigs, the old mirror lures, and the way that we used to fish them in the wintertime was you get in a turn or you find an old oyster reef and you throw your bait and you let it just jig along the bottom or slow retrieve and you feel that tap. So after that I moved to the North Shore a couple of years and fished the causeway and the bridges and all of this stuff before social media, and there was 10,000 people out there, and I learned techniques from over there with the jigging and stuff like that. Then I had kids, and you don't take a kid to bounce jigs off the bottom at the trestle or the rocks or anything along those lines. You got to find a way to keep them from being snagged. So I went back to my grandfather and all of the old timers with sliding corks. And sliding cork is my main thing that I fish. And I fish it a ton of different ways. But before we get into the sliding corks, because everybody was talking about this, when you're talking jerk baits and such, I recently found these matrix minnows. I like the small crankbaits that we were talking about. I'm not particular to Bill Lewis. I'll use just about any of them as long as they're short and fat. Dive anywhere from 2 to 5, sometimes 6 feet. And the way that I fish that is just like tide mass on. Cast it out. I really like to let it sit. Just sit there. And then I'll start with a twitch and maybe another twitch. And when I reel my line, I'm pointing the tip of my pole back to the lure. That way this thing sits. So when I twitch, it goes like that. It'll dive down like this, and then I'll reel back. And it'll dive down, and I'll reel back. And that's basically my whole retreat. If I reel it, I'll reel 5 or 6 cranks and pause. And I always find that the fish hit pretty much on the pause. I very rarely catch anything still
Pass
retrieving.
that around so we can see it.
Yeah.
Got hooked.
I don't want to hook anybody, they are sharp.
Bomber fighting.
I think that is a bomber. I just replaced a bunch of them because again, I have a
You have that
14-year-old
other
son
ATV still out there somewhere?
and they get hung up on everything.
Is there a name for that style of crankbait?
Like I say, it's all of the ones, I like the square bill on all of them. I don't use the round bills or anything like that. I like the square bill because it really gives it a lot of flutter on it. And again, it's anywhere from the surface to like 5 foot of water. That's what I'm checking with. If I'm trying to go deeper than 5 foot of water, I really like these matrix minnows. This one, you can see it, it's got a little BB in it, so it makes a little rattle on it. This is a sinking, that one right there floats. This one sinks, it's kind of slow, and I do the same thing. I twitch, and I point my rod tip towards the bait as I'm reeling. Twitch, and reel. And I use these a lot just to locate the fish. Like they were talking about before, the fish right now are spread out. They could be anywhere from the wall all the way to the dam and Hope Dam. And if you try to do it with a cork or anything like that, you're just gonna be spinning your wheels trying to find the fish. But I truly believe that speckled trout are school fish. So if you find one, there's probably more there. The problem is when things are slow and stuff like that, you might catch one on that crankbait and you gotta go another 30, 40 yards or even further before you get another one. But I believe that there are other fish there. So that's where I use my sliding cork. So once I find 2 or 3 with this, I'm probably gonna spot lock or anchor up and then I'm gonna work on the sliding cork. I'll pass that one right. I'm telling you that matrix minnow has changed my life recently. The other thing about the matrix minnow is the last couple of trips that I've been making along the rocks is you see these little bitty minnows like this. And it just seems like there's millions of them. So I'm a match to hatch guy. Whatever the bait is in the water, that's what the fish are gonna be feeding on. So again, that one right there, and we've been catching, Ronnie laughs because I call them ditch pickles, bass. But I've been using that lure for bass and everything, around the marinas in Bayou Bienvenue, up and down the Dyke Canal, Violet Canal, everywhere. That bait right there has been one that's just on my line. So does anybody fish with a sliding cork? Anybody here fish with a sliding cork? All right, so not that many people. Now, probably everybody fishes with this setup right here for a sliding cork. My leader goes anywhere from 12 to 18 inches depending on what I'm fishing. I use kale hooks for my live bait. Again, it's my grandfather, that's what he fished with, kale hooks, so that's what I fish with. My leader is usually just 30-pound monofilament. I got a roll in it. That's what I use. I've tried fluorocarbon and every other type of line, and I don't find that it makes a difference with speckled trout. So you come from your hook, 12 to 24-inch mono leader, and then just a barrel swivel. Tie your barrel swivel on, and then that's where you attach your main line. Well, when you're setting this up, I want to get like some line out.
You gotta have 2 people in the boat to do that, or?
No, I do these.
I'm just
pick
wondering.
these up in like 5 minutes myself. So the first thing that's going to go on is your stop knot right here. There's 2 different types. I like these eagle claw ones. It's a little piece of twine that goes on. You're going to run your line through that, and then you pull a little piece of plastic out, and then you just cinch it down on your line, cut the ends of it off. With these come these little bitty beads. It's the smallest bead you got, and this is what stops this knot from going through the other beads. Depending on what I'm fishing, most of the time this is what you see. I put a bead, I put a smaller bead, and then a bigger bead, and then my cork. For trout, I really like these Billy Boy corks, especially when I'm fishing deeper water. And I put another bead right underneath the cork, egg sinker, and then another bead. The reason I like this bead right here, in between the weight and the barrel swivel, you don't need it, but it keeps that barrel swivel from beating your weight to death on it. Piece of live bait and then pick your depth. We were fishing redfish with this, so that's how deep it goes, right where my left hand is to here. And again, this is why I like this over any other cork setup, is because if I want to go deeper, all I got to do is slide this knot up. So that being said, when I'm fishing with my son or my dad or something like that, and we know the fish are going to be in 3-4 feet of water, or we don't know where the fish are, then we'll set it to that depth. A lot of times I find the bigger trout are hanging underneath the school trout. So if I pull up in Bayou Bienvenue or something and I see birds hitting, I'll make a few casts. For smaller trout, I'll put on a 3/8 or a ½ ounce weight on this sucker. Look at my depth finder to see what the depth is, and the way that I measure it is I got a 6-foot span. So that's 6 foot. If I need to go to 12, I do another one, and so forth. So that comes in, that's where my depth finder,
Grab the cork and slide it up. Slide it up so you can see.
that's where it'll stop at. And that's where my depth finder comes in. I fish Bayou Bienvenue a lot. Not the general area, but the actual bayou between the wall and Lake Bourne. Going back to my Reggio Delacroix days, I fished a lot of Bayou Batola and Bayou Robin, and those places held a lot of fish. In the turns, in the straightaways, so when I slow down to an area I'm gonna fish, I'm looking at my depth finder and I'm trying to see where the bait is. I might be in 20 foot of water and it's blank. And I just ease up to that drop off into that ledge, and that's where I start seeing the bait. That's where I set my depth. And I'll set one on my boat, let's say if it's 12 foot deep, I'll set one at 12 foot. If it's goes up to 3 or 4 foot, I'll have one at 3 foot, and then I'll have one in the middle. And I'm looking to find that depth. Once we start hitting a few fish, then I set all of my corks to that depth. Now, as I said before, this is mainly live bait. However, I do a double rig on this as well. Leave your barrel swivel right here. Get rid of this, and I take my 30-pound mono, run it through, tie a knot, and then I just make a homemade double rig on it. If I'm fishing deep water or the bigger fish are down deep, then I might put 2 3/4 ounce jig heads on my double rig, because I don't want the little fish to hit it. And if it's slow sinking, those little big school trout, they're gonna pick it up every time. I gotta get my bait straight to the bottom. So I'll put it on, punch to the bottom. Probably gonna be a slower bite, but if you were fishing the top or something, you would probably leave that school of fish because they're all 10, 12 inches. I'm gonna fish to the bottom and I'm gonna pick up, if it's really good, you get one every cast. If it's a little bit slower, maybe every 1 or 2 casts, you're gonna catch a double or something like that, and they're gonna be good 15, 18 inch speckled trout. A lot of people would just drive straight over that. Matter of fact, this winter I was fishing one, I don't know how familiar everybody is with Bayou Bienvenue between the wall and the lake, but where the old camps used to be, right past the fort in Bayou Bienvenue, where the old camps used to be going out towards Lake Bourne. I fished that entire stretch of turns right there, all the way out to the lake. And we came around the turn, and there were birds just a diving, going to town. Another boat pulled up, another boat pulled up. The first couple of fish we caught were all 12 to 13 inches. And like everybody does, they pick up and I start looking at my depth finder, and I'm like, okay, well, there's bait down like 8, 9 foot of water, so I'm gonna set it 8, 9 foot. We dropped the anchor and we never left that spot, and we caught a 3-man limit in no time. And people, during that time, you would see the birds pick up. They pick up over there, they pick up over here. Occasionally, somebody else would stop. They would try. You could see they were catching small fish. We were fishing down at the bottom, catching bigger fish.
Is that cork weighted?
This one is not. That's where this one is. And again, for trout, I really like these Billy Boy corks for trout, but they're a little bit heavy. I can cast them pretty far, but when I'm fishing redfish, I like a lighter cork. And all my stuff I get at Gause's, They carry everything for sliding corks. So if I'm gonna be fishing shallower water, and we'll talk about that in a second, these little bitty styrofoam corks are great because they don't have a lot of weight and they don't change the way your line sits in the water.
And another thing about the sliding cork is the guy next to you don't know what you've got to fishing either.
Well, you say that, you say that.
Keep it top secret.
One reason I started fishing these again was because when I lived on the North Shore, me and some friends were going to fish the trestles, and it was just too windy. So I said, man, I'm hearing everybody's catching stuff at the wall. This was my first time catching anything at the wall. I said, let's go over there and let's go try it. And we started catching a few fish at the wall, so I started concentrating my efforts again at the wall because it was close to home. So none of them could jig. None of them could do this, do that, just like with my son. So I started, hey, let's do this sliding cork. Trip after trip, we were out there with a sliding cork and catching fish after fish. And here would come a boat. And guess what? I'm fishing with a cork. So the first thing they start casting is your typical speculizer rig. And they went through every boat does it. They go through every bait that they have in their boat trying to figure out what you got on and can't catch a fish. But you're fishing 20 foot of water, you know, it's a different thing.
You're down maybe 10 or 12 feet, depending where you see the bait.
Usually it's where the bait is.
Okay,
Early,
I don't know how to see bait on my boardings.
on my Lawrence, it comes, I don't know which one you got, mine comes through in balls, and they're usually red and purple, like it'll be a ball. And then you'll see the fish is usually on mine, it's like a line, or maybe a curved line that comes through. I'm mainly looking for bait. I don't submit to the theory that every fish in Louisiana leaves the marsh of Bayou Bienvenue when the summertime gets here and goes out to the Biloxi Marsh. Still a lot of fish around. I don't like
Fish there all year?
all year, but I'm not chasing speckled trout all year. I'll catch speckled trout. If anybody follows Ty Messon, he never leaves the marsh either. He doesn't go limit out on speckled trout in certain months, but he'll catch bass, flounder, redfish, and trout. I don't like the sweat. I don't like getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and making an hour and a half boat ride to go chase a speckled trout. You know, that fillet gets pretty pricey with those fishing trips. So I try to stay in the marsh. And again, years ago, fishing range on Delacroix, I used to fish topwaters along Lake Amity in the summertime. And we'd load the boat with redfish. But it never failed. Every trip we'd catch 2 or 3 big speckled trout. You know, 5, 6 pound speckled trout in Lake Amity on topwaters fishing for redfish. So they're still around. It just depends on what you want to fish. Now, I do have my spots. Fishing the Biloxi Marsh, like Bayou Sioux, Bayou St. Malo, and going a little bit further east that way. I have bayous that I go red fishing. Almost all of those bayous have a deep hole going into it from the lake, 20 foot of water. So I use this same rig when I'm red fishing, back in the bayou, you know, 6 inches of water sometimes. But then when I come back out, I always spot check those holes. Those holes will hold white trout every now and again, or speckled trout or something like that. So again, that's why I use it. This is my tackle box, and y'all feel free to come look at it. This is just my sliding cork tackle box. When I'm fishing, I gotta rig it up. It's got everything in it. Now, I was talking about redfish and other fish on the sliding cork. You were talking about the drop shot. When the fish start getting really deep in the holes along the wall, I'm talking 18 to 20 foot of water, and everybody's fishing drop shots. Some people have a hard time feeling that tap. When that bait's down there and you just jig it, it is a light tap. I do the same thing with this. I use this as my drop shot. Just get rid of the weight, leave the cork, and then your leader right here is where I put my drop shot. I do the same thing at the trussels because of the snags and the hang-ups at the trussels again. 14-year-old on a jig head at the trussels is all you're doing is retying baits. So I do the same thing right here. Put my drop shot, cast it out, and especially at the wall, what this allows me to do, let me back up a little bit. When I fish the wall, I fish the wall. I don't fish the mouth of the guillotines, I'm all the way around. There's 2 of us fishing, I might have 4 lines out. I'm casting one up against the wall, I'm casting one parallel to my boat this way, I'm casting one out this way in different depths. When it gets super cold, I think the last couple of posts that I read this winter, everybody was talking about, if you feel like you're fishing too slow, slow it down even more. That's what I'm doing with the sliding cork. I'm getting that sucker all the way to the bottom. When you get to the bottom, your cork will lay over. If that weight's sitting on the bottom, it's gonna lay like this because you got no weight. So then I'll just gradually bring it up to where my bait's sitting like this, my cork's sitting straight up and down. And when I jig it, my cork will bounce. And that bait's just bouncing off the bottom. Falling tide, incoming tide, I don't care. I'm gonna cast it up and just let it drift slow with that tide. Just jig it, just give it that little twitch enough to get that cork just to move. And just let that bait drift along the wall. When it gets super cold, I might not catch 15 fish in a morning trip. But the 12 to 15 that I do catch are gonna be 2 or more pounds. I mean, you catch some big fish that way. And I'll use shrimp when we have shrimp. I'll put on a matrix on a drop shot with it. I'll try a smorgasbord of different baits with this setup. One might be Carolina rigged like this, your typical Carolina. One might be drop shot. One that I'm gonna fish around with and just try to locate, it'll be my double rig. I'll put a double rig on there, let it cast out, get right off the bottom, and then just jig it and work it. And see if I can't locate a fish. Just like fishing the causeway or the trussels, generally if you find out where those fish are hanging around those pilings, same way at the wall. If they're right up against the wall, almost all of it against the wall. If they're 30 yards off, they'll all be that 30 yards off.
Excuse me, one point about fishing with a double drop shot or a double rig. If you know you're going to be getting into big redfish, sometimes you get sisters that you catch them both at the same time, or you don't catch them, you hook them both at the same time. And when they go opposite directions, there's no drag or there's no rod to keep them from breaking those lines. So it's not uncommon to have a double where you lose at least one.
Especially on redfish.
Yeah,
redfish, very common. And staying with the double rig real quick. If nobody's ever fished a double rig, if you get into a really good trout bite and you feel the first hit and you know, okay, I have a trout on, do not start reeling that thing in very quickly. Just slow it down and just keep tension on it. And almost guaranteed another fish is going to come up and hit it. And when he hits it, you'll know, I got another fish on. Sling them in the boat and go back out there. My redfish rig, as I said before, typically this, but it's one of these lighter corks. I generally go with a lighter weight, no bigger than a 3/8, usually around a 1/4 inch on this if I'm fishing a redfish, because I don't want it. A lot of times there's grass and all around. I don't want it to get stuck there. But I also want to keep a weight that if I got to move, I can go somewhere and drop it down a little bit deeper and still get on speckled trout or white trout. Now flounder. How many people have seen a flounder busting minnows up on the bank? It's very common and they're very hard to catch right against the bank. I do the same thing with this when I'm trying to catch flounder, but I get rid of this egg sinker and I go straight cork to my swivel, and then I'll shorten this leader up to maybe 6 to 8 inches and I'll put a split shot on here. Again, one of these light corks so you're not making a big splash. And what I do is I try to lay that sucker up against the bank like that. Your cork's going to drift however far you set it. I usually set it about 1 foot of travel. But that allows my bait and that split shot to sit right along the bank. And I just want it to drift along the bank with the tide. Just let it carry. Because if there's one flounder there, there's probably another 1 or 2 that's laying up in there. And that's just another way that I adapt it. If I decide later in the day I want to change that up, I can take that leader off and I can just rig me another leader. Or what I'll do is instead of using a hook, so I don't have to put another weight on here, I'll put a leader with a jig head. 3/8 is my favorite size jig head. I can use that as a hook if I just want to use it as a hook for live shrimp, something along those lines. Or I can put a matrix on there and cast it almost anywhere I want to go, and I can go find fish. Now, fishing the sliding cork. So we got all that stuff out the way. This is the ways that I fish it. When you fish it, it is critical that you keep your slack up. A lot of times you're going to see them just, all you'll do is you'll see your cork just starting to swim, or it'll lay like that. And you're like, man, that don't look right. You got a fish on. And if you're fishing 20 foot of water and you try to set the hook, you didn't do anything because you got 40 yards of line out here and then you got 20 foot down that way. If anybody ever fished with a circle hook, you know not to set the hook on a circle hook. You just reel. So that's typically the way that I do it with mine. When I start to see that I get a bite with this, I point the tip of my pole towards the bait, and as I'm pointing, I'm reeling down till I get that slack. And it's not a hard hook set for me. I just want a continuous like this. And what it's doing is it's bringing all of that line back and burying that hook in their mouth.
You using circles?
I use kale hooks. But the technique for hooking them is almost the same, where you don't want to set the hook. You just kind of want that pressure pulling back on it, because you're fighting all of the line laying on top of the water. You got line going down. This right here is already a lot of slack. So when I'm getting ready to set the hook, I'm reeling towards them, and then I'm just kind of leaning back into them.
What size hook?
These, I think, are 3/0 kale hooks that I use. I mean, I like the little wire style kale hooks because, you know, bury a big thick hook through a shrimp and it's going to kill it. I've tried all little hooking the shrimp behind their head and stuff like that. They all die like that. I generally hook them straight through the tail some kind of way. The other reason for that is I was taught, you get a bite and you pull your shrimp in and the head's knocked off of it, it's a speckled trap. So I always just give them the head. Here, you can have the head. I hook them in the tail and I cast them out. If I'm fishing lighter weights and stuff like that, this Carolina rig, to me, I think that shrimp's out there floating right off the bottom that way.
So you drop a weight on the bottom, there's a hook 18 inches or 12 inches out, and you're under a car.
No, like this. What I'm saying is when this is sitting on the bottom, if that weight's sitting on the bottom and my shrimp's hooked in the tail, he's floating along like this. Well, if I hook him in the head, I think they die faster and they don't swim as good.
When you're doing that under a cork?
Under the slide cork, under this. Because like I say, I can fish this in 100 foot of water if I want to. It just depends on where I move this knot to.
Yeah.
This acts just like a Carolina rig without this.
Correct.
You throw a Carolina rig, you throw it where you have a leader
Yeah.
and this way here, and you throw it, leave it on the bottom.
And Ronnie's talking about that Carolina rig. We got in right before the first freeze this year. We got into a mess of redfish in Bayou Bienvenue, same place I'm talking about, where we were fishing like 8 to 9 foot of water, but it was the drop off. It went from like 5 foot down to 9, 10, and down to 20. The way we were getting the redfish was like in that 5 foot of water range. So I set my bait to 5 foot. I set this cork to 5 foot, and we would cast it up on the flat, and I would drag it, and my cork would be sitting like this, and when that weight went off the ledge, the cork would stand up. And I knew I was on that ledge, and I'm fishing the tide. I'm just letting the tide carry my cork right along the ledge, and it was probably 25, 30 yards of bank that we were catching the redfish on. I don't think I could have done that just using a regular Carolina rig, because it's going to get caught and tied and your slack's going to pull it. But the cork's the indicator. You pull it off, the cork stands up, and then that cork just stays in that tide line going down the bank. And I mean, it was literally almost every cast doing that. And again, using this allows me to keep, let's say, 4 fishing poles on my boat that I'm using a cork for. And I can use it in 6 inches of water to 100 foot of water. I don't have to have corks rigged up with the speculizer rig. I don't have to have sliding corks. I don't have to have jigs on. I can fish this with all of them, and then it frees me up to have my crankbait poles and stuff like that, or a pole with a matrix on it, or anything else. To me, I just think the sliding cork's underrated. Everybody wants to snap and to pop with them, and I mean, I do it with this right here. That's right.
My weak point's always been that first knot. Now, are you able to tie the first knot tight enough on Power Pro type lines, braided lines, and you're not having a problem? I can make it work on mono.
Now, I'm gonna lie, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know about braid. I've tried
you're
braid
using mono.
before. I'm using mono.
Okay. Oh, really?
I've tried braid before, and it's been so long ago, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. But that's the weak point on the system, if you're using braid.
If you use a
is
braid,
that first knot, because it comes up, puts enough pressure to keep pushing the
correct, I would
knot up.
assume. Now, I don't know how these would act. These are little rubber stoppers. Then, to me, they don't work well on mono. They slide
What you
on
do, if
mono.
you use braid, you put about 30 foot of mono on it and tie it.
But your last 30 foot of mono.
Correct, you
Put a
can do
double
that. My
union.
son fishes braid. So-
I use that on braid.
Braid don't work
With rubber ones.
The rubber ones?
Yeah, and if you get the real small one, you know,
That's what I was gonna say.
it works pretty well on no matter what size braid you use, unless you're using something like 10 pounds or less. But I
Yeah.
usually use a 20-pound braid when I'm fishing with something like that, and using those rubber stops like that, and you get the real small ones, and they hold pretty well.
That's what I generally do is on the rubber stops, if I'm using, let's say 12 pound, I want to get the stops for the line size down from what I'm using. And they're pretty easy to put on. The only deal with these is they don't come with the little bead, the small bead that you gotta put
You gotta buy 'em
underneath them. You gotta buy them separate.
Chris, got a question for you.
Yep.
You got?
Yes, sir.
For your stop, have you tried the little brown plastic thing with the 3 holes in it?
Haven't seen that either.
That's for sale, that works with braid.
Does it mess up going in your reel when you're trying to cast? It can
I
reel
can
them
cast
into it?
fine with it. Sometimes I have to make a double pass through some of the holes to make sure it's fairly firm.
T,
But
Yeah, I've never,
can you bring me that next time, bring one of them so we can see it?
yeah, I've never seen them. I
They
mean,
have them
these,
at Gus's in a little pack right next to the Black
I have to
River
look.
thing. They're a 1/16 of an inch long. I think they got 4 little holes in them, and you know, you run the line in and out
Right.
like that, and they'll slide on your line. Sometimes on the last one, I'll go through and come back again to make sure it's strong.
Have to bring those. Just a little tip, just to make sure, when you put your line in here, make sure you slide the plastic towards the tag area.
towards the end.
And not the main, because once you tie it down, that plastic's good.
The old ones,
There's no way you can cut that off.
this is my first pack that I bought that was like this. The old ones that I had, had a line through it. So it didn't matter which way you slid it, once you took it out, it would just slide off the line. But these, as Ronnie said, when you put them on, put it on your line, and you pull this little sucker out, and then you just pull this tight, and it just makes
And then you gotta
makes a
cut
knot
off
on
the
your line.
ends. Gotta
And then
cut
you
off
cut
the
the tag ends off, just flip,
Otherwise,
you
you
know.
get
it's-
caught, you'll,
Can I see a little bag that you had down there? I just want to take a picture of it.
the guy, the black guy that fishes with Dudley Chink, he made those little paper things that stop your corks. I think he sells them. I've got a couple packs of them.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I've never,
These are, I'm talking about a glass.
Yeah.
You might want to bring them, bring yours too.
huh.
You say you fish with 4 different lines, you throw out 4 different corks and you fish with them. What about a recommendation of when you lay it down? Do you secure that rod?
I do, my 14-year-old doesn't.
Yeah, I just thought people should know that. You just don't lay it
But
down
I've
there.
gotten very agile on the boat going. Because the other thing is a bad habit of, and when you fish in the birds or when you fish in that bayou and fish are hitting, let's say you're fishing with like a speculizer rig and you take one off and you go and throw it in the box and you lay your pole on the deck and your bait's hanging in the water. Don't think that speckled trout won't come up to the side of the boat and grab that. Don't leave the bait.
They come out the
hanging in
water and grab it.
Oh yeah, I mean they'll go nuts.
Hey, when you fish
Bayou Bienvenue, and you started the intercoastal and worked all the way to Lake Bourne, or you primarily fished the lake, the Bayou Bienvenue around Lake Bourne?
Zoom up,
area?
show.
Generally,
That's Bayou Bienvenue right there.
generally in the fall, when I start fishing, I run out to Lake Bourne. If it's the fall and the fish are still hitting on shrimp and they're gonna be up higher, I run out to Lake Bourne and I'll stay. You see, they got an old island right there. That island, you can't see it anymore, but it holds fish. It's structure underneath the water.
Where is that?
Right at the mouth.
Right here, this little island.
Oh,
right there.
okay, gotcha.
I'll start at the mouth of Bayou Bienvenue. A little bit further out on your left-hand side, there's a bayou that comes out. Fish will congregate around that bayou. And then I get that bayou right there. And then those next two horseshoes right in there, I fish that bayou and then those two horseshoes going up, especially in the summertime for redfish.
Where are the horseshoes again?
What's a horseshoe?
Up
a little bit.
Up here,
Going up. High, a little higher.
Scan out, keep coming.
Keep on
Right
going.
here. Hang on.
There's one further up.
Oh, you zoomed out, that's why. This bayou right here,
All right.
when you come out of Lake Bourne, and then around this point, this horseshoe, that horseshoe, that whole shoreline right there, in the summer, well, really in Bienvenue year round, that's as far as I go, right there.
Going towards unknown.
And then you get.
Correct.
And then you go into Lake, from the Bayou Bienvenue.
And as in the fall, as it starts to get colder and the fish come in, I leave right as the sun's coming up. This is no secret, this is all I ever do. I leave right as the sun's coming up and the birds are gonna start diving. And I drive down Bayou Bienvenue from the wall to the lake till I see birds diving. I think this trip, I had 2 trips where I didn't see birds diving. When I have birds diving, I go to my normal spots, I shut down and I idle and I look for bait balls on my screen. And then I take my trolling motor and I just troll through those bait balls, throwing generally a sliding cork, and I have one bait caster set up with a matrix that I'll drop on the bottom and I'm jigging just trying to locate fish. Once I locate them, I go back to the sliding cork.
That's Bayou Bienvenue right there. That's where you were talking about. You were
Correct.
sitting.
This stretch right here, this whole stretch all the way to the lake, is generally where I fish until it gets super cold. I don't want nobody around me.
We used to have a
Sorry, I
camp.
like you guys, but I just like to by myself.
What kind of boat do you have so we can avoid you?
I have an 18-foot Avenger. It's gray and blue.
And he's got a beard, so you can't lose him.
Huh?
He has a
Yeah,
beard.
you can't miss the beard.
Where are boat ramps?
Stanley have to zoom out, but it's all at a Bayou Bienvenue. If you want to zoom out,
Okay.
Where you want to go?
right
Boat
here
ramp.
Boat ramps.
on Parish Road.
It's off of Parish Road, there's like 3 of them.
This-
So any one of the boat ramps go out of Bayou Bienvenue through the locks to the wall.
All right, that's Bait Inc.
They incorporated, what other 2 they got?
They have Gulf Outlet, which is behind the hotel.
That's a golf outlet right there.
They got Pintos.
There's a golf outlet. This is up here.
Pintos is right when you come off the bridge, going into San Bernardino. First boat launch on your left.
Pinto's got a lot of low water and a bad dock, a bad ramp.
Fish bait in.
I've never launched there again.
Done a great job on a lot of friends.
Pintos is hard for me because my boat sits high on the trailer, and like Ronnie said, when the water gets low,
That
I
one's
can't
off the
launch.
list.
I don't like being incorporated because everybody knows that the parking area is horrible. I've been using Gulf Outlet. I really
Golf
like
outlet,
Gulf.
fisherman's friend, Tony's a great guy.
Where's Gulf Outlet? If you're coming from Slidell.
Parish Road behind the hotel.
Okay, I
All
got
right,
it.
just a second, everybody. Fisherman's friend, if you come down Parish Road, you'll see a flashing yellow light. You take by, there's a new casino there, take that left, it's about a quarter mile. Stanley, come back up.
And isn't the pen right back there also?
Pen, yeah.
That's the pin. That's the pin right there.
Yeah, about a quarter of a mile to get to it, that's the.
And it's loaded with bass right now. All the areas are in the launch.
When it-
Just loaded with bass.
When it gets cold, the water's low right there.
10-minute boat run. And I run about 30. That's what my boat runs is about 30.
Start out, question. All right, yes.
if you're coming from